We are excited to collaborate and support Edmonton Unlimited in showcasing some of the hottest startups in town during their 13th annual Startup Week. Throughout this series, you're going to get the opportunity to meet some of Edmonton's brightest entrepreneurs, hear about their products, innovations, and missions of changing and shaping the world for a better future. Today, I'm talking with Varma, a progressive modern energy company that aims to shape the future of waste while simultaneously working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and produce heat and power, among other things. To tell us about this innovative, world-changing company and process is CEO Sean Collins of Varma Energy. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. This is fantastic, and congratulations on being in the Edmonton Unlimited pitch competition with Startup Week. Super exciting. Maybe give me a little bit of history here on Varma, the word and where it comes from, and just a history on the company.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate you. So I'm Sean Collins. I'm the CEO for Varma Energy. Varma is the Norwegian word for warmth. So our company is majority owned out of Oslo, Norway, by a parent company called Green Transition Holdings. So a bit of a homage to the parent co with the Varma name.
Yeah, good stuff. So the technology was founded about 20 years ago, I think, or has been used for about 20 years back in Europe, and you guys are bringing that back over here, or bringing it to here, and just kind of proving the benefits left, right, and center, and the expansion that it can do, and the good that it can do. Maybe just tell us a little bit about the technology.
Sure. Yeah. So our parent company, Green Transition Holdings, they own company called Aitos.
Okay.
They've developed this two-stage combustion technology. Sort of two-stage process. You put your municipal solid waste into a furnace in an environment where there's no oxygen. Produces syngas, which is almost like natural gas. You can combust that in a second stage of the process at about 1,000 degrees Celsius. So really, really clean combustion. That produces steam that you can use for heating or industrial processes or to produce electricity. So sort of input of municipal garbage and output of decarbonized energy. Mm-hmm. And big feature for us is post-combustion carbon capture and storage. And so all the CO2 that would normally be emitted is captured and put underground.
Yeah, this is a pretty wicked solution. I mean, you're tackling multiple problems simultaneously, so I mean, what about some of the supports? Some of the things that you're taking to these communities. I know you'd mentioned off camera that you were kind of on tour right now, and you're pitching this around to show the benefits of this. How's that been going?
Yeah, we've been tour of town councils and across Alberta for the last sort of 3 or 4 months here. Been awesome. Really positive reception all around. General sort of pitch for us to municipal audiences that currently they're paying for permanent landfills in their region. It's pretty expensive, the cost of disposing of waste in landfills where they tend to stay permanently forever. They're permanent features on our land. And so the sort of pitch we've been making is we as Varma, we're project developers. We bring the capital, we raise the investment, we sort of take the risk on the project. Yeah. The sort of core pitch to municipalities is instead of you assigning your contract for waste to a landfill, assign your contract for waste to us, and then we can do a landfill-free, carbon-free solution to your waste.
Yeah. Returns. So, I mean, we talk about coal and how much energy you can produce from coal. You talked a little bit earlier off camera again about just some of the how close you are on making that same kind of return. What are some of those numbers? Yeah.
This is probably my favorite part about what we're working on. My whole career has been in energy. I'm sort of an energy geek. And when you look at the energy value of something like coal, it's sort of 18 to 20 megajoules of energy per kilogram of coal. When you look at garbage, municipal solid waste, it's between 14 and 16, so about 15 average. For me, when I sort of did those numbers, there's a sense like we're throwing almost literal coal into landfills. It's full of plastics and woods. There's a huge energy value in getting that back. And even the conversations lately around energy security and sort of trying to have more local sources of energy production. There's huge energy in our waste that we throw away every day. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, and the fact that it can just about match, and then with your method and the technology, it can be cleaner.
Yeah.
And then with your carbon capture, that's pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's an underutilized resource and has huge potential for growth.
Yeah, it's interesting if you compare waste to energy in Canada versus places like Europe. Generally use the language, they're about 20 to 25 years ahead in terms of policy landscape. So, and even just math, in all of Europe, there's about 1,400 waste to energy facilities. So dozens to hundreds of these facilities in most countries. In Canada, there's 4. And so just a really saturated market. Europe's about 10 years away from being sort of completed at 90% landfill diversion target. And we still have about 90% of our waste going to landfill in Canada. And so just sort of different eras in terms of sort of market development.
Right. With governments now starting to kind of recognize the value of carbon capture and with a lot of these big incentives to be better, at just energy producing and more efficient, and then of course environmental, what kind of growth do you see in this economy? And maybe not just in Alberta, but across Canada over the next, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had the crystal ball to know exactly, but we are absolutely making a big bet that we think there will be dozens to hundreds of these types of facilities built across the country in the coming 15 to 20 years. Are starting to see some really cool coordination between levels of government on this stuff.
Yeah.
As you have municipalities want landfill diversion and sort of more compelling uses of their waste. You also have the sort of provincial government right now really taking a big swing on carbon capture and storage. There's 25 projects under development, which is, you think about each of those is probably $100 million plus project.
Yeah.
It's bananas. So huge growth in carbon capture, and then federal government, the 50% investment tax credit for carbon capture is a total game changer in the economics. You spend $100 million and you get $50 million back. You create investor confidence, you de-risk the market. So I would say generally very optimistic that there's like the conditions in place to do this would sort of pray for stability in market.
You mentioned coordination, and I like to bring up collaboration too. So how is the rest of the markets when it comes to energy accepting this kind of technology and looking to accept you when you do transmission lines? I mean, from your guys' plants into the rest of the grid. How's that been working? And do you need anything else that needs, or does something else have to be developed to kind of facilitate that?
No, generally. In looking at the market opportunity in Canada, we sort of very conscientiously located headquarters in Edmonton and in Alberta because of how open our electricity market is, being the only deregulated electricity market in the country. Anywhere else we would go, you have to interact with that provincial power utility, whereas here, if you can get a connection onto the grid, you're allowed to. If you raise the money and build the facility, you're allowed to connect to the grid.
Awesome.
And so, clear line of sight to your ability to become a generator, and then even more so for us, I don't envision most of our projects will be significant grid producers.
Okay.
We're finding a lot of opportunity in being co-located at existing facilities. We produce it's about 60 megawatts of steam or 20 megawatts of power. You lose power if you put it onto a turbine, but that amount of power, it's a lot, but that's being used by our refineries, our chemical facilities, our ammonia facilities, our petrochemical facilities. They're all using 50 to multi-hundred megawatts of energy. So kind of opportunity to do industrial densification. And looking at a couple options right now where we might just co-locate with another processing facility, we're talking like an animal proteins facility that they need heat and power, and they would produce some CO2, and you can combine your CO2 system. So some cool overlap if you sort of get more involved in industrial within industrial clusters.
Gotcha. one of the stats on your website that really fascinates me, by 2050, I think you were saying 70% more waste will be produced. 70%.
Yeah. It's it's
So
sort
to
of
utilize that resource of burning it.
Yeah, we're going to have way more of it.
Yeah.
And a bit wild if you think about these numbers in Edmonton, that like the EMRB projections and sort of most projections are that we will go from 1 million people to 2 million people by 2040.
Yeah.
It's huge. We're going to double the city in 20 years. So if you double it, you're 100% higher. And then if that's now 70% higher in waste, you're talking being like having 300% more waste than we have today.
And that's got to go somewhere.
It's got to go somewhere. Yeah. And right now, almost all of it here goes to a landfill.
Right.
And so I find that uncompelling.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we close out, tell me a little bit about your team and just maybe some of the partnerships and the groups that you've had the privilege of working with.
Awesome team. So our parent company, Green Transition Holding, they've got about 70 people across the holding company, and a great group and sort of capital wizards. So fun to work with them. Here, our development manager, Rory Wheat, is sort of a jack of all trades. We just onboarded a new CFO, Mikhail Blum, who's going to be based in Toronto, sort of leading our capital raise work in Canada, and have sort of a great team of consultants and partners sort of around us. So also a ton of work, sort of support from Edmonton Unlimited, the Chamber, Edmonton Global, Invest Alberta. We found a very, very warm welcome in sort of getting set up in Edmonton.
Fantastic. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you again so much for coming on and telling us all about this. I think this is world changing, and I think it's a big changer for Canada as well. I mean, I know you're here in Edmonton, and we're happy to have you here, but I think this is just going to stretch out, and I mean, it kind of has to as our population grows, and this is a multi-tiered solution to a variety of problems that we're going to be running into. So, good on you. Fantastic. And again, thanks so much.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely.
Thanks.